government to take control of this territory in 1870. The Canadians moved in to try and force Riel out of power and take over. And what happened was a rebellion. The people who supported Riel, all the fur traders, Métis, First Nations, and Francophone fur traders, rose up to fight for their rights, their ownership of the land. And the outcome of the Red River Rebellion, as it was known, was the creation of the province of Manitoba. Canada accepted this huge chunk of land as a province, and agreed to the terms that Riel was fighting for about land claims and ownership rights for the people that lived here. But he was deemed a traitor. The Canadians felt he stood in their way, and tried to get him out of power. They sent out a military force to capture him. He escaped that first attempt, and ended up in South Dakota, traveled through Montana for the next 15 years, and in 1885, Riel organized a second stand against the Canadians, this time in Saskatchewan. He was captured during that battle at Batoche, Saskatchewan, taken to Regina, and they executed him. And here he is 100 years later, 130 years later, as a hero. Things, we have a more broader perspective on history and what he was actually fighting for, and recognize him as his hero. We even celebrate Louis Riel Day, of all things, here in February, yeah? So we all appreciate the day off, Louis. Back into the harbor here. We're underneath the CN Main Line, a railway bridge built back in 1910. This harbor was a shipping harbor in those days, and the city of Winnipeg was considered the grain exchange shipping capital of North America. Huge amounts of trains in the city, created one of the largest rail yards in the world at the time, located north of these buildings at the ports, and there were thousands of steamships every year, every season, coming up the Red River, and as well the Assiniboine River, bringing grain from the prairies surrounding Winnipeg into our city, put up onto the trains that sent coast to coast from this site here. This was the halfway point in a continental shipping route throughout the Midwest in the U.S. Winnipeg was almost adopted as an American shipping center at that point. By 1914, we had become the fastest growing city on the continent. We were the third largest city in Canada behind Toronto and Montreal, and rapidly becoming the capital of the West. In 1916, the Panama Canal opened up. The Americans immediately shifted their trade routes that ran through the Midwest and up north here down to the south, and cut Winnipeg off as a major shipping port. Within 3 years, the city shut down. We lost 80% of our trains and all the steamboat traffic. This infrastructure that had been developed to support a city of 8 million people was all kind of useless at that point. the city shut down. It was the end of the golden age of Winnipeg. But it began in the first place with these two rivers that meet here. This is the Forks. The Assiniboine River empties out into the Red. The first European settlements had started here because of the connection of rivers and the accessibility to the fur trade. Taking advantage of furs coming from every direction, really, down the river. The Red River, we're going to travel north on this now, going with the current. It's an unusual river in the sense that it flows north. It's one of the largest rivers in the world that does that, but is about 800 kilometers long, start to finish. Starts down in Minnesota, flows north, creates a state line between Minnesota and North Dakota, and empties out into Lake Winnipeg, north of the city. All this water eventually makes its way through the lake up to the Nelson River, and it goes all the way north to Hudson's Bay, emptying out to the Arctic Ocean. On the left, you see the International Human Rights Museum. Incredible project, probably the biggest construction venture the city has seen since the construction of the Legislative Building. It's absolutely huge. This has been 4 years under, 4 years under construction. To date, $300 million have gone into this project, and it's absolutely incredible. They started putting the glass as a facade around the front side of it, and they're slowly working their way through the building. So it won't be open until 2013. Expect to open the doors then. Crossing the river is the Esplanade Riel Bridge, a cable-stayed bridge. And looking across the river on the right, you'll see the old St. Boniface Basilica. It's an old Roman Catholic cathedral built in 1905, burnt down in 1968. The fire had started on the roof, where a construction company hired to re-tin the cathedral inadvertently burned it to the ground by leaving a blowtorch unattended, and apparently set the rafters on fire. The roof collapsed during the fire and caused this explosion that just blew the building apart. There was a stained glass window in the circular opening in the wall that was blown out, and they found pieces of glass on the opposite shoreline from that explosion. Skyline view of the city here, the bridge up front. Out in front of us used to open up for steamships that were coming through here. This was a bylaw in the city that every bridge crossing the river would had to be designed to open in one way or another. This one did so over on the west side on the left. There was a counterweight in that structure that goes up above the rest of the bridge, and they would that would swing down, lift open the first section of the bridge.